back. You're watching News Center. The big story back home. More than 100 Vistara flights have been cancelled in the last 48 hours after several pilots called in sick at the 11th hour. There was chaos at airports after angry passengers confronted officials over cancellations. Sources say several pilots are unhappy with the new contract, which cuts their compensation. The Aviation Ministry has asked the airline for a detailed response on the cancellations. To take this forward, we're joined by MR Sivaraman, former Director General of Civil Aviation, and sjlazars, aviation expert. Mr. Sivaraman, if I can come to you first, what options does the government and the airline actually have in this situation where, and first of all, this is not a problem which began over the last 2 to 3 days. It's been going on since the first week of March. A lot of pilots have been calling in sick to protest against the new contract, which brings down their minimum guaranteed flying allowance. What options does the DGCA and the airline itself have in order to make sure that the pilots report back to work?
The DGCA has no option, I'm afraid, because this used to happen even in my days during the monopoly of Indian Airlines at that time. They frequently went on such mass casual leave or going on strike, etc., for one reason or the other. The airline, at least, is the only organization which can deal with it at their level. The DGCA has no role to play in this because this is a kind of bargaining power which the pilots have by going on mass leave, etc. Unfortunately, the pilots live in two worlds. One is the world they classify themselves as a working class as far as their emoluments and other facilities are concerned. Another thing is when they come out of the workplace, they feel they belong to the elite group. They are an elite class of people, highly trained technocrats, and in my view, they should be in that group rather than behaving like working class people, striking for very little things. They don't understand one thing. They are not harming the airline in which they are serving as much as they harm the passengers who might have booked their tickets for various purposes, urgent purposes, business purposes, health reasons, for surgery, etc. They are injuring them. That they don't realize. This is very unfortunate.
Right. Right. What do you think, Mr. Sivaraman, are the options before the airline, things that they can do to convince these pilots to return? Because the changes that they are making, it's a difficult call for the airline because the changes that they are making for the pilots, there will also have to be changes that they will have to make for other employees, non-pilot employees in the airline.
Yeah, that's correct, because the airline pilots always look forward to getting more and more emoluments and more facilities from the airlines. But the airline also has to look at its budget because they have to ensure that they are competitive in the market. If they pay too much to the pilots, then correspondingly they'll have to pay to the cabin crew, the engineers, the ground staff, and everybody. So it's a kind of a chain reaction. So therefore, the airline has to balance these interests properly. And in the context of the pilot striking, I saw a news item sometime back that there are more than 3,000 to 4,000 trained pilots, that is those who are having commercial pilot license available for recruitment. I mean, there are various options for the airlines also. They must also look at the reasonable demands of the pilots. I won't say that, the airline is at fault or the pilots are at fault. But in my opinion, today, the pilots are at fault because this is a travel season which might have started. People would be like, to go to various places for the holidays. And the pilots have actually put the gun to the temple of the passengers whom they are harassing now.
Right. So you're saying that they have gone, in a way, I wouldn't say on strike, but they are going on leave, on sick leave at a time, which is perhaps the highest tourist season. Sjlazars, to get you in at this stage, how do you, as a former pilot yourself, what do you feel about some of the demands that have been made by the pilots, also their protest against reduction of minimum guaranteed flying allowance from 70 hours to 40 hours?
Good evening, Parikshit, and good evening, Mr. Sivaraman. First of all, thank you. And I'm not a former pilot. I'm a former crew and an aviation lawyer. I just wanted to clear that. But I've spent 37 years in aviation, and I've been around when Mr. Sivaraman was our DGCA. I would like to just point out something that he said, which is incorrect. They're not asking for more. Their packages are being reduced in view of the merger. So if you're paying somebody 7,000 rupees, you're now saying I'm going to pay him 4,000 rupees, and then I'm going to merge with a bigger company. I mean, it's fair for the corporate structuring, restructuring that needs to be done. But I do believe that some kind of discussion needs to be had with these pilots. We need to also, touch the pulse of the pilots across India. I hold no brief for them, but let me make very clear. There is a large-scale unrest or dissatisfaction currently across all airlines, whichever you look at. And the principal reason for that is the FDTL clause. We all know that the FDTL car has come out by the DGCA, which is a wonderful car. And then suddenly at the last minute, because of certain compulsions, it has been put on hold. That's in the court, so I will not speak about it. It came up yesterday before the Delhi High Court. I'll go to the second point. Now, someone is being paid 70 hours guaranteed. You're bringing them down to 40 hours. This is the new contract that you're bringing in to merge into the larger airline because their pilots have it. But what you're doing is, in effect, dropping their salaries by about $1.5 lakh per month. Now, why would somebody sign on a dotted line to get a reduction of salary in a merged company? Their company is already profit-making. So that's the reason for disquiet. I do believe even this is surmountable if there was discussions, if there were proper, across the table discussions. I can't see, any sort of difficulty in this. The third problem, I think morale has been affected quite across. And Vistara is the grandest airline in India. If you ask me today, it's India's favorite airline. It is the benchmark of in-flight service. It's the benchmark of on-time performances, and it's one of the.
So Sanjay, you're saying that morale of the pilots of the airline crew of Vistara is down. Their salaries are going to come down by $1.5 lakh. So what, according to you, could be some of the middle parts? Restoring the salaries to what they were earlier?
Not speak at them. Speak to them, not speak at them, number one. Number one, like Mr. Sivaraman said, there is dialogue. Dialogue is open to everybody. So there's obviously not much dialogue because I'm given to understand almost 22 pilots have put in their papers in the last month to leave. They're serving a notice period. I'm also given to understand there are another 9 or 10 joining that. They're all looking at other carriers abroad because other carriers abroad are paying much higher. Now, let's not look at this as purely a money thing. Indian pilots are earning less than the world market rates. There is a purchasing power parity. I fully understand that. However, let's not bring it down to a situation where you ask someone to take a pay cut so that the company progresses so much more. Only a certain select group. So there is where I find the dichotomy. Mergers or restructuring must be painless. And I understand the biggest pain at this point are students, families going on holiday. These are things that fortunately the Vistara management has managed to curtail in a way because they've taken off the Airbus aircrafts, they put the larger aircraft so that there's a lot more capacity flying. However, the bottom line is, you're going to have unhappy people, whether in the cabin or in the aircraft, unless it's sorted. And I believe dialogue is the only thing. I'm not saying that, they're asking for 70 hours, let's keep 70 hours.
You
need to find a common balance.
Mr. Sivaraman, even you spoke about a common ground.
Yes.
Do you think the airline could have handled this issue better before the new contract was to come into effect, before asking the pilots to sign the new pay contract?
Absolutely, I agree with Mr. Sanjay, because there should have been a dialogue before they asked the pilots to sign on the dotted line. And secondly, whenever such a merger takes place, whenever, for example, even in government, if I were to go on a deputation to a public sector undertaking or some other place, my emoluments are always protected. So you cannot say that you join the merged company on a reduced emoluments level, because that is not done, which means that you're hurting the people who have already been at a particular level of emoluments. Now, this can always be sorted out. There have been many examples. For example, the National Airport Authority of India merged with the International Airport Authority of India. Indian Airlines merged with the Air India. There are so many examples which Vistara could study, or the owners of Vistara could study and bring about some kind of an amicable settlement. I mean, the fact of the matter is that pilots feel that their emoluments are going down. And this should not happen even with a merger. Somehow or other, you can protect that emoluments by giving them as a special pay or an honorarium or something like that. This is usually done in government also. When an officer goes on deputation to some other place, some other post where he is urgently required, but the post carries a much lower pay, then the government says, okay, this is the pay, but your pay will be protected, your increments will be protected, but that will be given as a separate package to you because you are urgently required to do that. In the case of pilots, they are highly trained technocrats. There is no doubt about it. Lives of hundreds of passengers are in their hands. And once you take off until you land, it is in their hands. And therefore, we must treat them also properly so that their mental state is also proper, fit and proper to fly aircraft.
All right. Very important points by both Sjlazars and Mr. Sivaraman that bringing down emolument salaries of pilots and employees does reduce the morale, and this is an issue that needs to be handled amicably, and a way out has to be found at the earliest for the convenience of passengers across the country. Thank you very much, Sanjay and Mr. Sivaraman, for joining us on the program. That's it we have on this edition of News Centre. More news and updates continue right here.